So we're just talking about the performance of the Dow transports over the last year, but I think everybody on Wall Street wants to know about 2022. What is your outlook for supply chain in 2022? Are we still going to see trucking and rail rates near historic levels? Is there a setup for all this to calm down and get back to quote unquote normal?
Well, obviously the supply chain was challenged throughout 2021. It has gotten better of late. I'll credit some of that to some cooperation between carriers, shippers, local and federal governments, and some creative logistical practices. But a lot of it also was seasonality. So December typically slows down a lot more as long as you're not one of the parcel players, UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service. Going into January, I think we're going to get back to more congestion again. We have an early Lunar New Year, and I think shippers are going to start shipping ahead of the spring season right now. So I think that's going to lead to continued high prices for both trucking and rail carriers.
Yeah, this year, Lunar New Year on February 1st. Generally, there's a lot of push forward of goods ahead of that time when workers in Asia take a break. So I really was going to ask you about that already. Is this a moment where you see the Port of LA, the Port of Long Beach, obviously where about 40% of all goods come in from Asia? Is this where things get settled out in January? Or does it get more backed up when you say, as you say, retailers and other companies may be pushing goods forward?
Well, we've cleaned up now. If you look at the numbers out of the Port of LA, we're down over 70% from sort of the worst, if you will, in late November. So clearly seasonality was their friend. I think we're going to see these numbers get worse again in January. We're projecting the supply chain to remain congested for most of 2022, worse in the first half of the year, getting better in the second half of the year. And we think there's a couple good ways to play those themes.
All right, let's get into the way to play them. You have some stock picks, your top transport picks for 2022. One of them is the nation's biggest trucker. Why are you going with that pick?
Sure. So I think the trucking cycle is going to be a long one. I think we're going to have a demand cycle that keeps going out forward. Shippers right now are trying to build back their inventory still. And I think we're even going to go to inventory levels above where we were before because shippers no longer want to have that just-in-time play. They're really gearing up for just in case. That's going to give us our demand going forward. We don't have a ton of supply coming back. I think overall, we're going to have a strong truck cycle. But I like a couple other things Knight's doing as well. They got into the less than truckload market with a big acquisition in July, followed it up with another smaller acquisition this fall. Now they have about 15% of their business in less than truckload, which comes at a much higher multiple from investors than the traditional truckload sector. And Knight isn't even getting that traditional truckload multiple yet. We think there's some multiple expansion in their future as long as they execute.
Jason, we almost got to let you go, but I do want to talk to you just a bit more about trucking, e-commerce, and everything else. You're saying more people bring in, more companies bring in inventory, and you see things staying elevated. Is there anything that could happen that will reduce these rates and make things easier on retailers and honestly the rest of us as we go to the supermarket and everywhere else?
I think we're going to have to see the economy slow down for that to happen, to be quite honest. And I don't think that's necessarily something we all want. But for example, if inflation kept running high and that really put a nail in the economy, then I think that we could see some of the rates slow down, if you will, across the supply chain. But otherwise, trucks, rails, even warehousing, I think all those rates are going to go up in 2022.